Welcome back to Good Morning Oakcrest. I'm Tamika Harris. Today we introduce a brand new segment on the show, and it's entitled Library Book Review. Today we'll be talking about a variety of books that celebrate Black History Month, and I decided to look in my own backyard for a guest this time. And joining me today for the very first time on Good Morning Oakcrest is my sister, Jasmine Harris. Jasmine, hello.
Hi, Tamika.
It's good to have you on the show.
Good to be here.
And my husband is officially jealous because you're the first family member that has made it on to Good Morning Oakcrest.
Lucky me.
Yeah. So if you're trying to put two and two together, my husband is Jasmine's brother, and we're so excited to have you on. You're a professional librarian as well as a book consultant. And I thought it would be great to have you on the show to talk about a few books that we could borrow from the library that celebrate Black History Month.
Yes.
And you came up with some wonderful finds. So first of all, before we get into that though, definitely want to talk about your background and let the people know, are you from here or?
I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I have a bachelor's in English with a concentration in African American literature from Bowie State University. I am working on getting my MLS, Master's in Library Science. I've been in the library profession for 10 years, and I've been a librarian for 2 years.
Now, you're very unique to me because you're like one of the only people I know that read all the time. Like when I was little, I read all the time, but I don't know how you do it. I mean, I'm a professional, and when you grow up and you go through life, you have school, you have different things, and now I can't hardly find the time to read. How do you do it? You're a professional, you make it happen.
Yes, I do. I just love getting lost in a book, getting lost in a story. And when you find a good book, you'll find time to read it. You know, late at night, reading through the night, I do that to fall asleep. And sometimes I wake up first thing in the morning and start reading, or I read at work.
Yeah.
Wherever I find free time, I always tell people just have a book on you.
Okay.
Wherever you go, have a book. I have a book in my car, listening to a book. I have a physical book to carry with me, always somewhere. Something, my eyes have to be on the page or words. I love letters.
Yeah. So, I mean, there have been a time recently where I said, Jazz, I want to read something. And Jazz said, okay, what do you feel like? And I said, you know, I told you what I felt like at the time. And you said, well, why don't you read this? And so I'm on this series now that's wonderful. And I mean, how do you grab that entire, that's a talent, I think, to find what people like and then refer them to something and they could just fall in love with that.
I never thought of it as a talent. I don't know. I just think that it's something that I love to do. And because I've been reading for a long time, you know, I have a mental library of things, and I'm adding on to my library. As part of my training, I have to read new genres of books, science fiction, romance, and mystery. Those are books that I haven't read anymore, so I'm expanding my knowledge in the world of literature and fiction, even nonfiction. I love nonfiction also. So when somebody tells me what they're in the mood for, even if I haven't read it before, I can always research something within that genre or something that will interest them. Right. And you know, you always kind of take a chance and see, you know, maybe they like it, maybe they won't, and you kind of end up that they love it.
Well, you haven't failed me yet, so I don't think you ever will. Tell us about this profession of being a librarian. It's I think, a unique profession. And so what gets you excited about being in a library full of books? What gets you going?
I think that just being full of books is it for me.
Okay.
And working with the public. I work in a public library, so I'm always interacting with different backgrounds of people. And, you know, I learn from my customers. I learn about new books from the customers, some things that books that I've never read before. You know, they'll come to me and say, oh, have you, do you have this on the shelf? I'm like, oh, no, that looks interesting. So I'll, you know, research it for them and pull it up, and I'll even find an interest in myself. But I started off as a circulation assistant in circulation side in high school. It's my first job out of high school. When I was in high school, and you know, I didn't decide or think about being a librarian until, you know, I started getting older and, you know, reading more. So I was like, well, why not make it a career? I love reading. I love talking about books. I love, you know, interacting with people about, you know, literature and stories.
And I mean, it's so funny because I think most times for most of us, we only go to a library if we have to.
Right.
But
Research.
there are people out there who really want to go to the
Right.
library, and it's a great place to meet people too.
Right.
Like
It really is. I just love the traditional library setting. I know in this, day and age we have the e-books and everything and e-readers. And I just love being in the physical library with the physical book.
Yeah, well, that leads us to you being the perfect guest for this type of program. Again, welcome to Library Book Review here on Good Morning Oakcrest. And Jasmine Harris, my guest today, has brought by 3 books that celebrate Black History Month. It's February, and so we're excited about celebrating different cultures and different heritages. And you've brought a few books that were actually written by Black authors.
2 books were written by African American authors.
Mm-hmm.
1 book was not. Mudbound was not written by an African American author. However, it does talk about the exchange or the relationship between Caucasian American and Black American.
Okay, we'll dig into that a little bit, but what is the first book we're going into? The Known World by Edward Jones?
Edward P. Jones, The Known World. It's set during the time of slavery in a town called Manchester County, Southern County. It's about a very ironic or a topic that it's kind of taboo.
Okay.
We don't talk about it, we don't hear about it that much. It's about a Black slave owner. Henry Townsend, he's a very affluent African American within the county of Manchester. And, Jones is his writing is just so beautiful. He kind of takes you into this world, and, when you're away from the book, you miss it.
Okay.
So you're following Henry Townsend and his relations with his slaves and his relations with, the white Americans that are there in the town with him, and how the different economic levels. There's Henry Townsend, but above him, although he's very affluent and he's very wealthy within the county, above him there are still the white Americans who are not as affluent as he is, but because they're white and he's Black, there's a dichotomy there, kind of.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So he's still finding himself struggling race relations wise,
Exactly.
even though as a Black man, he has slaves.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Yes.
I don't think we really talk about that either in Black history, about Blacks owning Blacks.
Right.
What in the book do they talk about how this process happened? What was the thought process behind the Black slave owner? Is that mentioned in the book?
Well, the thought process, from Henry's perspective, he didn't see anything wrong with it.
Really?
His parents had to buy him out of freedom, and while he was under the mastership, if that's a word at all, of his master, he kind of saw his master as his father, as the father figure in his life. So he saw him and wanted to be like him, because his father was not around. Henry's father was not around him, but they're working hard to try to buy him from freedom, buy his freedom. So, Henry develops this relationship with his master, and seeing him as his father figure, and his master helps him purchase his first slave, Moses, and that's how he got started. So there's a scene in the book where the parents were like, did we teach him? Did we tell him this? We taught him how to do everything else. We taught him not to go outside at night without your free papers. But did we tell him that owning your own people was wrong?
Right.
You think that that's not something that you should tell a Black man, that you can't own another Black man, or a human being, that you can't own another human being. It's wrong.
So my question then is, how did the slavery community that the Black man owned, how did they feel about being owned by a Black person?
Well, from what Jones, the way he writes, the slaves under the Townsend plantation, they were endeared by their master.
So it was a different relationship.
It was a different relationship. They respected him, and they didn't see it as, there were different relationships going on within the slave community. Moses, he was shocked at first. His first slave that Henry purchased was Moses. He was shocked at first that he was purchased by another black man, but then he just kind of fell in line, and he became the head slave of the plantation, and very close to Henry.
When we think about slavery, we think of brutality, not even in just the black community, but there are other cultures that have experienced slavery. It's interesting while we're talking about this black owner and the slaves. Was there a type of brutality that happened between the two, or no?
Yes, there was. There not very violent brutality. There was an issue with a runaway slave, and he cut off his Achilles tendon. But over brutality or over violence, no. And I think that's what helped make the relationship between Henry and his slaves work, because he was a gentle master.
So there were boundaries that the slaves could not cross,
exactly.
but at the same time there was a different type of relationship.
Exactly.
Very interesting. Now, the name of the book that we're talking about for Library Book Review is The Known World by Edward P. Jones, who is a black author. Fantastic story about a black owner who owns black slaves. And I mean, I guess that is a taboo that we do not talk about, like you mentioned before.
Right.
Very interesting. Anything else about this book that you just that pops out at you that just really makes it interesting for you?
The writing, for me, it just drew me in. And like I said, whenever I put the book down, I was missing being in this county. I was missing being in the story of the Townsends, and the characters are so interesting. He creates this very elaborate world, and these characters, just so much detail and beauty to it. And you can see I use this for school, so all the notes and everything are in there. It's a beautiful book.
So The Known World, this type of story though, is real, or did he add some fictitious parts to it?
See, well, I was watching a YouTube seminar, Yale seminar on YouTube, and the professor discussed how Edward P. Jones would memorize parts of his story from his research. He did research and everything, and after a point, Mr. Jones, he would stop and just not research anymore, because he said he got enough information. But he would memorize half of his stuff during the day and then go home and write it. So some of it is true, but it's fiction.
Okay.
So it could be elaborated also.
All right. Well, if you're just joining me, my guest today is my sister. Some people would say my sister-in-law, but I dropped the in-law part. She's my sister because we're kindred spirits, and her name is Jasmine Harris. She is a librarian as well as a book consultant, and the first book that we talked about was The Known World. But right now we move on to a different author, different heritage, different background, and that works for what we're talking about. Her name is Hillary Jordan, and she's the author of Mudbound. I've never heard of Mudbound, so please paint the story for us.
Mudbound, once you start reading it, you won't be able to stop.
Really?
It'll grab you from the beginning.
Wow.
It will grab you from, it was actually recommended to me by a librarian. I was at a time where I was just like, oh, I need something to read. I need something to read. She said, here, you won't stop reading it. So I read, at work, I read the first page, and I was almost late for my shift because it was so good. It begins with this scene of a murder, or this scene of a son, or two brothers burying their father. And we don't know why they're burying their father. And toward the end of the story, we'll find out. So I picked this book as a part of Black History Month because it shows the relationship between two young men who come back from the war, 1946. They are in the Mississippi Delta. So the young African-American soldier who comes back, he comes back to sharecrop on the field for the white family who also the other son who comes back. So they come back and they form this unlikely friendship. And the family goes through both families go through so many ups and downs, and it's just a lot of drama.
So go back for us. A sharecropper, which was not uncommon during that time. Okay, we're talking about the time when slaves became free, right?
Well, this is 1946.
1946.
So
okay, so we're way forward. We're fast forward. Okay, so a sharecropper becomes friends with a landowner.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so the McAllens are the people that own the land. Jamie McAllen is one soldier that comes back, and then there's Ronsel Jackson. He's the African American soldier who comes back from the war.
Okay.
And like I said, they form this unlikely friendship, and Ronsel, he's coming back to sharecrop for the McAllen family. Whereas when the war, he was praised and he was a hero, but he's coming back to the Mississippi Delta where he's not even thought of as human. So that's the drama there. And then there's, a little love triangle that's going on between Jamie and his sister-in-law, Laura, and, his older brother.
Oh.
Her husband.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So a little bit of love and
a little bit of murder.
A little bit of drama.
A
little column A, little column B.
But it's an excellent book.
Really?
Excellent book.
Okay, so do you know anything about Hillary, the author herself?
Now, Hillary, I didn't do too much research on Hillary, but I can't recall any other books that she's written. Okay. As of now.
It just would be interesting to wonder, as a Caucasian writer, what was her motivation behind writing this story? Right. Just something that would be of interest to, me. I don't know. Well, we thank you so much for joining us. I'm still here with my sister, Jasmine Harris. She is a librarian and book consultant, and the next book that we're going into is written by an author whom I have really fallen in love with, thanks to you, really. I had talked to you about a book that I wanted to read, and again, Jasmine, the great book consultant she is, forwarded me to this book called Family at the time. But this is J. California Cooper. She's written not only Family, but Life is Short But Wide.
Yes, this is her most, Life is Short But Wide. This is her most recent book, came out in 2009.
Okay, so Black author.
Yes, African American author.
And give us the background behind this book.
This book is just so sweet, so endearing. It's about the relationship of Val. He's a Native American, half Native American, half Black, and his wife Irene. And they, build this legacy together. And through the book, we follow them and their children, and ups and downs and within the community. They have two girls. One young lady goes off to Paris to study. Sounds like me. And then their other child, she stays on the land or the house where Val built for the family, to keep it. And then, as she gets older, jealousy within the community happens, and somebody, a woman tries to come in and take what she's got, and she's attacked by men who really want her for what she's got, and it's all of the family drama, community drama, very contemporary. I love how it just starts from a certain point and ends kind of like at present day.
Okay, so does the book Life is Short But Wide, does it start in a certain time frame?
Now this starts again in, I think it's the 20th century, 19th century, I think.
Okay.
I think so, 19th century. And gosh, I forgot what.
Well, J. California Cooper, she's the type of author that I think carries you on a journey.
She does.
Through time.
That's what I was going with.
Yeah.
She does carry you on a journey, and you follow the characters as they grow. It's like you see the two daughters as children, and they end up as adults, grown adults, and throughout their growth, they have their, they're disconnected from their family, from the community, from their culture. In, you know, just the simplicity of just living at home, or the drama of wanting to get out, you know, wanting to search for something new. And that's what J. California Cooper does. She just takes you through on a journey.
Now, is this book very much, because I know you've read other ones of her books, is Life is Short But Wide, is this book similar to other books that she's written? Because it reminds me somewhat of Family, like how she takes you on that journey.
It does, and I think in that respect, it does remind you of Family. Her writing style is very similar. You know, a J. California Cooper writing, like you can have a paragraph, and you know that's J. California Cooper. You know, the only other author that she may, for me, that she may get mixed up with is Alice Walker. You know, they have very similar writing styles.
Alice Walker, for those who don't know, wrote
The
Color Purple. So very interesting story. I can't wait to read actually all three of these books. But really, and the great thing behind this type of segment, library book review, is that these books are available at your neighborhood library. So
yes, they are.
Wonderful reads that you could find just like this in the library, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right. Well, we thank you so much, Jasmine, for being our book consultant of the day and telling us about three fantastic books that celebrate Black History Month. The three of them are The Known World by Edward Jones, Mudbound by Hilary Jordan, and Life is Short But Wide by J. California Cooper. Well, anything else you'd like to add?
No, just thank you for having me here. This has been fun.
Oh, this has been fantastic, this will not be your last time. So yes, we're going to keep the people in suspense.
Yes.
But this will not be the last installment of Library Book Review, as Jasmine will be back to tell us more about great, fantastic books. So Jasmine, thank you so much for coming by.